Hi, it's Sharon from SharonTheReader.com. This is the last part that I'm going to do about Rochester. And I didn't prepare anything, to try and make me remember certain things. But we were living at home, and suddenly it seemed that we were spending a lot of time between there and Paris. It was a place that I'd always wanted to live. I'd always wanted to live in France. And it was kind of like, okay, well, if we're going to make a move, then now's the time to make the move. Because university can't be done there, and it allows me to explore the life that I wanted. So I will be honest with you, at no point did I think it would be the wrong move for me. So we put the house on the market, we got a buyer, we sold the house, and I will never, ever forget the packing up that we did. No one knows how much packaging that you do in a move until you go to make that move. There's what you want to take, there's what you don't want anymore, there's what you're giving away, there's, things that you're giving to charity, there's things that you're giving to family members, and right up until the morning of leaving, we were actually still packing, right? We were actually still packing a lot of artwork. What happened with Rochester was, you have to get your cat the shots, and you have to give them to I can't even remember who you give them to, but there are people who take them and they'll put them on a plane, and then they have to wait at the other side for so many hours, things like that there. And so the night before, Rochester obviously was well aware, and I knew he was, that there was something different going on in the house. Why were things being packed up? What was going on? And it wasn't anything that bothered him, but the night before we actually left was the night that they actually come and they take your cat, and it has to be in a special carrier and all the rest of it. And he knew that this was happening, and so he went out of the house, and we spent 2 hours trying to find the cat. And he must have thought it was all over, because he came swanning back in again, right? And just at that, the 2 guys had been there probably about 15 minutes in the hope that he would come back. To be honest with you, it was a night that no one got any sleep, because there was just too much work to do. And so I have to be honest with you, we were really exhausted. And the one thing I remember was getting on the plane, and the next thing I remember was landing. So they kept him, I think, 2 days, and then we were allowed to pick him up. And I remember, you sit and you kind of wait as they take, the animals out of wherever they've got them, and they're all always in a cage. And I just remember hearing the meow, right? And it was like your child's voice. Every mother knows their child's voice, and it was my meow. It was my Rochester. And he wasn't in any way down. He was quite happy. It wasn't as if the 2 days apart had done him any harm, or he was fretting or anything like that. And the one thing he did the moment he saw us was he put his paw through the little, what would you call them, little vents, right? And it was, take my hand. And all the way, home, he had my hand, which was lovely, because he didn't let it go, and if you went to kind of move your hand, his paw was immediately on top of it again, and it was just the most beautiful moment. So we reached the house, he explored, and he was a very explorative person anyway. So he was, he wasn't sort of like, okay, I'm in the living room, I have to get to know the living room. It was kind of like, I'm in the living room, I'm in the kitchen, I'm on the stairs, I'm in the bedrooms. He was everywhere. And he just accepted life. Now, we were living just outside of Paris. So therefore, it was kind of country-ish, but there was still houses around you. But it was very quiet. And he loved to go out and explore. And there was fields, and there was fields with horses, and there was lots of things for him to do. So Rochester was really very much at home. Life was taken off for him. His family was there, which to me, it didn't matter what you did. As long as Rochester had the family, he was happy. It didn't matter where he was. And I think at the end of the day, I think the freedom of the exploration of fields and the countryside, it really appealed to him. So we finally got ourselves all settled in. University was taken care of. I continued to work. And did I like that life as much as I thought I would? Sometimes I did. The people it was a village. The people there were friendly. But if you're not from France, you will always be, I think, and this is just my experience, a little bit of an outsider. But I will be honest with you, they did make me very welcome. And so I had a routine, and you blend into where you're living. You know, you get used to it, and you will make your own routine. And a large part of that routine was working. And I worked afternoons, had a break, worked nights again. So it was basically the same routine that I'd left behind. I met very nice people who were really helpful and very thoughtful. And, you know, that did add. I think everything you go through in life is an experience. And you take those experiences and you develop and you grow from them. But the one thing I always remember was if I was out shopping or I was round having a coffee, when you came home, Rochester was just right there. You know, it was your back, that was it. And he was such a cuddle dud. I mean, this cat really lived to be loved. And the thing is, I often wondered if the beginning of his life had had more love in it, would he have been as loving as he was when he was my cat? And I don't know whether it would have been or it wouldn't have been, but I do know one thing. He oozed love and he loved affection. And we loved giving it to him. You know, you just could never get enough of Rochester. He had the shiniest coat, and I've said this before, and I don't know why that stands out to me, but it was so soft. His little bones were so tiny. I said this before, he always smelled of perfume. So life went on, and you get used to where you are, and you're living your daily life. And this particular night, I was working, and my son had come in, and he was working on the computer. And I said to him, you know, time was starting to move on, and Rochester had been out for maybe 2 hours, which to me was quite a lengthy time, because he didn't spend that long out. He loved where he was, but, you know, he didn't spend that long out. He would come round the back of the patio, and he would sit there at the window, and you would know to open the door. And I always worked right beside that, but there was no sign of him. So my son went out, and you know, if you ever have a very young child, and there's 2 types of scream. There's a, I've fallen down, oh dear, and then there's the I've fallen down, oh dear, emergency room scream. And it was the oh dear emergency room scream. And he came running in and he said, Rochester is on the road, lying on the road. And we didn't have a lot of traffic. I mean, you may have seen in a day 3 cars. So I went out and I looked and I thought it wasn't him because I couldn't see his collar. And I went in and I said to my son, I said, no, it's not him because he's not wearing a collar. So he came out and we intended to lift this cat off the road. And when we went to lift the cat had a collar. And I knew that it was Rochester. And the funny thing was, that morning, he always had breakfast at a certain time, and he always came straight over to his dish for this breakfast. And this particular morning, he didn't. He stood at the door in the kitchen, and he just looked at me. He did have his breakfast probably half an hour later, but that wasn't the norm. That wasn't normal for him. It was very abnormal, and it was only afterwards you start to think about these things. And he didn't spend any time outside that day, and I was in all day. So he was very much around me, more so than probably would have been normal. He was always there, but he was more on the settee with me that day than any other day that I can remember. So we lifted Rochester into the sitting room, and there was no denying the fact that he had passed and he had been hit by a car. And one of the things that really, really angered me was the fact that whoever hit Rochester did not even consider it worth their while to lift him onto the pavement. They didn't even think that this cat that they had hit was worth lifting on to the pavement, or considering it was directly outside my front gate. They didn't consider ringing the bell and asking, was it my cat, or did I know who owned it? And so we set him on the settee, on a tile, and I think my memory is that there was not a mark on him. I didn't see anything marked. And I knew I was doing this video, and I'd said to my son, about that night. And he said, Mum, there was. But it's best you don't remember. And it probably is best I don't remember. I don't remember there being a mark on him. So the next day, we had to bury him in the garden. And I only wish that we had him cremated. But the vet didn't do that. Not where we lived. So I got a white sheet, and for some reason, for me, it had to be white. And we put him into the garden, and we buried him. And we said a prayer, and I remember playing a Leonard Cohen song just as we were putting him in, and it was called The Nightingale. And I will never forget that, or those few days and months, because the thing was, it was 3 days before Christmas, and I can honestly say I have no recollection of Christmas that year. You know, I know we did cook, I know food was made, I know that there is nothing beyond that I can say. Whether we ate, whether we didn't eat, I don't know. I just know that a part of my life, of my world, had been taken away. Now I've lost many things in life, as everyone has. But I never remember losing anything like losing that cat. I really never remember feeling as bad as I felt that Christmas. Christmas did not exist. Decorations were not put up. Nothing was done. If we cooked, we cooked. If we ate, we ate. I have no recollection. I had terrible anger. I had really terrible anger that something so precious, something so beautiful, and people will say, well, you know, it was only a cat. But I can tell you one thing. If that was the largest diamond in this world, or the biggest nugget of gold, and I had lost it, it wouldn't have hurt me in any shape or form the way the loss of this cat did. It literally left me with no belief in humanity, if you want. Because I can't understand how something so precious to one person, something that only you know the beauty of, only you know the specialty of, only you know the history of, only you know the life of, the baby moments, the, you know, because cats can be babies, and then they can be, you know, their nose stuck in the air. You know, there's so many facets. Maybe more than there is in any diamond there ever has been, or ever will be. But that's what you know. And that's what some person, and I would use another word here, but I won't, ran over, dismissed, and left lying on a road in France. Part of my world. And, you know, I'm thinking now, this would have been 15 or 16 years ago. And those feelings are still exactly the same. That anger did not subside. I learned to live without him. and I have 2 other cats now, and they're equally as spoiled. And I could tell you about them, but this is not about them. This is about the sweetest cat you would ever hold in your arms. And this is the end that some human give him. You know, if we do nothing else in life, if the only thing we can offer is gentleness and caring, then I think that counts for a lot. And it doesn't just extend itself to a human being. It extends itself to animals as well. So, one thing I am grateful for is that precious soul ever came into my life. I'll never not be grateful for that. I don't think the day will ever come when I'm not angry about how he left this world. And the thing with the white sheet, to me, was purity, because he was the purest creature I have ever encountered. The beauty of him was spectacular. And he didn't even know it. And it often makes me wonder, with people, do people know what they are? Do they know that they are spectacular? Do they know when they're precious? Or is it something that we have forgotten in people? And I will say one thing, when I look back on my past, I think there were many times I let that go. I think there were many times when I was not as kind or as considerate as I should have been. And I would honestly say, I think what I learned from that particular beautiful soul was something about how precious we can be, how kind we need to be. And I know he's not that far away. And I know that eventually some people would say no, but I believe that there is a union on the other side. And I just want to say, you know, that happened in December. I left Paris in June of the following year. And much as I still go there on holiday quite often, after that, I never want to live there again. There was memories there that were too hard to digest. And you would say, well, you know, if this happens every time a cat's run over, you know, you just leave a country. No, it wasn't that. There was something that died inside me there. And I just didn't want to be there anymore. I just didn't want to live there anymore. So, I'm not going to leave you on a down note. I'm going to leave you on an up note. If you're lucky enough, and I think we all get that break, all of us, to see someone or something as wonderful, as special, as precious, Do not take them for granted. Know that you have been chosen and that there is a reason for meeting that person. And if they leave your life, and often they do, be it through death, be it through choice, be it through circumstances, know that much as their sadness, they will have changed your life in a way that you will never understand until later. Kindness is a strange thing, and it's not a difficult thing. It's probably a lot easier to be kind than it is to be cruel. And I will say that where I live now, every house almost here, because there's 6 of us, right? Except for, four. 4 have cats, and 1 has a dog, and the other one I don't think has an animal. But there are other cats around here, and every one of them has a personality. They're not Rochester. My 2 cats that I have at the moment are certainly, personality people. But he was special, and in my opinion, that little thing that sat underneath the hedge in my back garden in Ireland, that little nobody that no one wanted, was the most beautiful thing anyone could ever encounter. I consider myself to be a very, very, very lucky person that I got to, I wouldn't say own him, but that I got the pleasure of having him. And the loss, though it nearly killed me, was worth it, because he was worth everything. And even today I look and I think he was worth everything. And I would give anything if you could have just, you people I'm talking to, could just hold him, feel his fur, cuddle him, and those tiny little bones and that lovely smell of perfume, and that sweet face. I can't give you that, but I can give you what it meant to me. And what it meant to me was everything in this world. So, hopefully you're all going to have something very, very, very special, right? And you're going to recognize it when you see it. And I think probably unlike me, you're kinder people than I was before he came into my life. At least that's my opinion anyway. And I just want to say, I'm glad I finalised this. It may not have been the most upbeat, but I do have a lot of other upbeat stories about cats. But that was the one that was psychic. And I think he knew that day that that was his last day. And while I sat shuffling cards and reading for people, I did not realise that my life was going to change that evening. I didn't know it. And maybe it's the best thing in the world I didn't know it, because had I have known it, it would have made it even harder to let go. And that sounds almost impossible. So, let's all be kind to each other. This is not an easy time for anyone. Let's get there. Let's find happiness. And when we find it, let's hold on to it. And if we have it, let's appreciate it. So, this is Sharon from Sharon the Reader. And I just want to say thank you for listening. You take care. Speak soon. God bless. Bye.